Shvot Tov, good vach. We are on Yud Amud Aleph, 10a1. If you're in the art scroll, we are first column, last paragraph. I will be honest, the next few lines I probably went over about 10 times before I got straight, so I'm not saying that to scare you, I'm just saying that to hold on tight, okay? So here we go. So the last thing we discussed on Friday was as follows. We discussed a machlokas, debate, about when you have a when you have a lechi, yes, when you have a lechi, the thing on the side, right, the side post, and it is only evident from the outside that it's sticking out, but it's not evident from the inside, right? So whether because it goes out this way, whether because it goes out, extends out, but one way or another, it's evident only on the outside and not on the inside. So flush on the inside, only evident on the outside, and that was we have a debate whether or not that's a kosher lechi. One opinion says yes, one opinion says no, and we had a whole bunch of questions according to the opinion who says that it is a good lechi, and we had a question based on a Mishnah. The only way we made sense of this Mishnah was by making a bunch of premises. What are they? One of them was that we were talking about a case where the small chutzner, we had a case in the Mishnah, we had a small courtyard and opening up into a large courtyard. Okay, and remember, the small courtyard was 10 amos wide, the large courtyard was 11 amos wide. And the only way to make sense of it within this view that says a lechi visible on the outside and not the inside is kosher is to say that, first of all, the small courtyard actually extends into the next courtyard. So if you're on 9b3, you'll see a picture of that. We also have to assume that it's not at the edges, because if it was at the edges, then if it was centered, then there's going to be 3 tzvachim will have lavud, and we'll actually see it as closed off with the other one, and it'll be fine. But rather, say it's a little bit off-centered, and therefore it's within 2 tzvachim on one side, but it's within 4 tzvachim on the other side, and therefore there's not lavud on both sides, and therefore it doesn't have a lechi, a side post on both sides, only on one side. And for a chatzar, according to at least one opinion, Rebbe, you need to have a lechi on both sides. Okay, so we made all those assumptions. With that, the Gemara now is going to challenge us. Gemara says, "Hi, Mai, what's going on over here? What is this? If you want to say that a lechi which is visible from the outside but flush on the inside is not a good thing, it's not kosher, then it makes sense." Rebbe savar lak Rav Yossi. Rebbe would hold the view of Rav Yossi. What is the view of Rav Yossi? That a side post has to be 3 tzvachim. Okay, so one of the things we haven't discussed yet is what is the width of a side post? So Rav Yossi is of the opinion that a side post has to be the width 3 tzvachim. Why is that? So we'll come back to why this is significant in a moment. Okay, to Rav Zera, Ravina Lesa, and we no longer have to assume the position of Rav Zera, who said that the small chatzar juts into the large chatzar, or the opinion of Ravina, who said that it's a little bit off-centered. We don't have to go into that at all. Okay, mishum hachi ktana be'esrei gdola be'achas esrei. We understand why the large one is assumed to be 10, the large one is assumed to be 11 amos, and the small one is assumed to be 10 amos, mishum de Rebbe savar like Rav Yossi, because Rebbe holds like Rav Yossi. What does that mean? What it means is as follows, because until now we've been focusing on the inside, the smaller chatzar. Why are you allowed to carry the larger chatzar? The answer to that is because even large chatzar is missing a wall, right? So why are you allowed to carry? Because it's missing, it's not missing a wall, it has a wall, but it's those two, the area on each side is its lechi. That's what allows you to carry from in the large area, because it has a lechi, in the larger chatzar has a lechi on each side, right? Because again, you have the big chatzar, you have the small chatzar, and where the wall between them is broken, but there's a little bit on each side. Now, why does it say 11 amos and 10 amos? How much is an amma? 6 tvachim normally. 6 tvachim divided by 2 is 3. 3 on each side. So we understand now why it said the big one is 11 amos, the small one is 10 amos, because one extra amma divided into 2 is 3 on each side. And this makes sense because now we have a proper lechi according to the view of Rav Yossi. So got it. Now it makes sense. You have 11 and 10. Perfect. However, so that makes perfect sense. So if you say now, this only makes sense if you say that a lechi visible on the outside is not going to be a good lechi. But if you are going to say the lechi which is visible on the outside and flush on the inside is a good lechi, and you have to say Rav Zera and Ravina. Again, Rav Zera is the one who says that the small chatzar is jutting into the large chatzar, and Ravina says it's off-centered. Why do you need the larger one to be 11 and the small one to be 10? What's the purpose of that? Either way, it's unnecessary, as the Gemara is going to explain. If it's coming to tell you the large courtyard is okay, it's to show you, meaning it's to give you a lechi on each side. All you really need is 10 amos. The bigger one has to be 10 amos and just 2 tzvachim larger. Because again, according to this view, you would not go like Rav Yossi, right? Rav Yossi lo savar like Rav Yossi, Rebbe lo savar like Rav Yossi, right? Rebbe's not going to hold like Rav Yossi, because again, why? Sorry, I didn't explain this part. Okay, so within the view that we've been assuming until now, I'm sorry, I know this is confusing. Bear with me. You're going to get this. Watch this. Okay, so within the view that we spoke about yesterday, that it's that we hold that. So how do we establish this small chutzner into the big chutzner? We said it's 2 tefachim away from one side, 4 tefachim away from the other. Right now, if it's within 2 tefachim on one, so why are you allowed to carry the large one? So you have to say that this Tana does not hold like Rav Yossi, because on the outside one, the larger one, you only have 2 tzvachim lachi on one side and a 4 tzvach on the other. But why would you be allowed to carry the 2 tzvach thing on one side? According to Rav Yossi, you need 3 tzvachim. Rather, it must be you don't hold like Rav Yossi, and then it's fine. The big one you're allowed to carry because in the bigger one, because you have a 2 tzvach lachi on this side, 3 tzvach on this side, and that's fine. In that respect, we're good. But the question is, why do I need 11 amos and 10 amos? Just say the larger one is 10 amos and 2 tzvachim, because all it has to be is 1 tefach larger on each side, and that would be fine. Why does it have to be so much larger? 11 amos doesn't make any sense. All it has to be is 10 amos and 2 tzvachim, and that would be enough to have a little bitsy thing, a little bit of tefach on each side. If the purpose is to prohibit in the small chutzner, to really be focused on telling me why I can't carry in the smaller one because it doesn't have proper lechis on each side. It should have been much larger. Why is it 10 and 11, right? By saying 10 and 11, the only way we're going to figure out this case is by saying it's off-centered, right? Because if it was centered with 10 and 11, then you'd have 3 on 3 and actually be kosher. So you have to say, oh, it's off-center, it's 2 on this side, 4 on this side. Do yourself a favor, just say it's like 12 amos and 10 amos. And then center it. It's too large on each side, so you have an amma on each side, 6 tefachim on each side. It's too large for lava to work. And then boom, and then you could teach the case. Why did it say 11 and 10? It does not make sense according to this view. And therefore, this Mishnah clearly does not work with the view that says flush on the inside, but evidence on the outside is a good lechi. Rather, it is not a good lechi. Shema mina. The Gemara says, yes, this is a good proof. So the Gemara at this point is proving from that Mishnah, the 11-10 Mishnah, even though we had this convoluted way of understanding it with jutting in and off-center, but now we're pointing out that there's something really off in the Mishnah, because the measurement of 11 and 10 would not make any sense, and therefore we're saying the Mishnah is not consistent with the view that says evidence from the outside and flush on the inside is kosher. Rather, it means evidence on the outside and not evidence from the inside is not a good lechi. Okay. Rav Yosef lo shmiya li hashmaitza. Rav Yosef says this ruling that a lechi visible only from the outside is valid. I never heard this from Huna. You actually told it to us. Now, that sounds like a very funny dialogue. It's not so funny. It's actually quite tragic. Rav Yosef was the Rebbe, was a tremendous scholar. He got very ill, and 2 things happened. One, he got blind. So you'll see a couple of times in the Gemara, we'll talk about Rav Yosef being blind. The other thing is he forgot his learning. So many times you'll find him saying something, or he'll hear something and say, I never heard that. And the Bible will say, actually, Rebbe, you taught it to us. And he'll remind his Rebbe. It's very, very sad and very touching also how the student is constantly reminding his teacher. Okay, so where did Rav Yosef teach us? He taught it regarding the following. You have a lechi which extends in line with the side wall of the mavoi. So you have a wall of a mavoi, and then the lechi extends beyond it, okay? So it goes straight. So if I go straight, can I see it from the inside? No, because it's flush against the wall, right? And says Rami bar Abba, the name of Huna, Pachos me'arba amos din mishum lechi. If it's less than 4 amos, we will treat it as a lechi. Umishtamesh mechudei apnimi, and you can only carry up until where the lechi begins. You can't go past it. Arba amos, if the lechi is 4 amos long, nida mishum mavoi, then it's considered a mavoi. Va'aslu shtamesh b'kulei. Not let it carry within the entire area. Okay. Va'at amar satlan Allah, and you, Rav Yosef, our Rebbe, you said about this. Shmamina plus. There are 3 things we can learn from here. Shmamina bein lechayayin aser. First of all, what do we see from here? It said that if you can't carry where the lechi is, that means you can't carry parallel to the lechi, right? We saw machlokas about this earlier. Here we're seeing in the name of Huna, you are not allowed to carry parallel to the lechi. That's number 1. Shmamina meshach mavi ba'arba amos. You see that if the lechi was 4 amos long, then it would need. It's no longer going to be a lechi. It would need its own lechi for it. So you see that the minimum measurement of a mavoi, of a alleyway, is 4 amos. Ushmamina near that a lechi which is visible from the outside but flush on the inside is considered a valid lechi, right? Because it's a case where you have a mavoi and the lechi is just jutting out further. So it's a case where you can't see it from the inside, you could see it from the outside, and you see it's kosher. So says the Gemara, the Gemara says the halacha is that if it's visible from the outside and not from the inside, it is a good lechi. Ask the Gemara, we just disproved this whole view from the last Mishnah. We just spent all this time, this complicated case, saying it's no good, and now you can tell me the halacha is that it is kosher. And the Gemara says yes, because there is another Tana of Chia who holds that a lechi that's visible only from the outside is a valid mavoi. Okay, if that was hard, we're good. Now, the next lines are going to be easy. The Gemara said that if a mavi entranceway is wider than 10 amos, then you must decrease the width. The Bryce says, the Tanakama says that if it's wider than 10, you have to make it more narrow, right? Then opening can't be more than 10 amos. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Eino Tzarech L'mayid. Rabbi Yehuda says that you don't have to decrease it. The thing is, Rabbi Yehuda doesn't say how large it could be. All he says, 10 amos is not too wide. How much is too wide? Vakama told how wide is too wide. So Rachai, Kamed Rav Yosef, the Mem Rav Rachai suggested in front of Rav Yosef the following: Av Shlosh Esrei Amos Shlish. They could be up to 13 amos and a third of an amma. Okay, where does he get this number from? The Kavachomer Pasi Biraos. He learned the Kavachomer from boards enclosing wells. What is he referring to? So the Jewish people will be traveling in the to be Ola Regal, they'd be coming to Eretz Yisrael, and sometimes they have to stop for Shabbos. They'd camp by on a road, and they'd be thirsty. So they want to get. So people would dig wells. The problem is you can't take from a well, which is Rosh Hashanah, into the public domain, which is Rosh Hashanah. You're carrying on Shabbos. So what do? So Chazal came along. They came up with this leniency that around a well you would set up these 4 L-shaped, small, like tefach by tefach, L-shaped posts. One on one corner, one on another corner, one another corner, and then the wells in the middle, you're allowed to do so. How much space? How much space are you allowed to have between these posts? 13 amos and a third. Where that number comes from, we'll see from another time, but just bear with me, okay? Says the Gemara, she tired to hen paras murala omed. By boards enclosing a well, there you have much more that's open, right? Because you just have the corners that are closed off. Everything else is wide open, and nonetheless you're allowed to carry in it. Lowi tired behen yosem shlosh amos shlish, and yet even though we're so lenient, we still set a limit of 13 amos and a third. Okay, so mavoi by a mavoi shalowi tired to paras murala omed. But the mavoi, which you did not allow the gap to be greater than the walled portion, by a mavoi, if there's open, too much of the mavoi is broken down, it's no longer, it loses the status of a mavoi. So more of it has to be closed. So we're more stringent. So eno din shloi tatzir yosem shlosh amos shlish. For sure, you can't allow for an opening of more than 13 and third amos. Okay, so the Gemara says no, that's not a good kavachomer. V'anosenes. So the reasoning go in the opposite direction. 10a4. Pasiv yirel she tired to behen parts murel omed. When boards which enclose a well. There we are very lenient. We allowed it, even though there's so little that's covered, everything else is wide open, we allowed you to do so. Lo you should not allow an additional leniency of opening up more than a third. You should not allow. Okay, but Mavishalovi Tartabo parts Morilla Omed, Tatarbo Yoser Mishlosh Amos. So we're saying like this. They were saying by the maybe we actually are going to be more lenient by the Mavoi. In other words, since we are already so lenient by the cases of the corners by the well, maybe we can't be any more lenient. We say, okay, up to 13 and a third. We can't go more than that. We've already been so lenient. Relax. No more leniencies. But by Mavoi, which we're much more strict, that we have to have mostly walls, it's not wide open. There maybe you could be more lenient, right? And therefore the Gemara says you can't bring a proof. And further, the Gemara says really in the opposite direction. It also has a question. By the case of enclosing boards enclosing a well, there we already have leniencies. Maybe you could have more leniencies because we want to be lenient for these people drawing water. Mavoi klal lo, but in Mavoi maybe there's no leniencies, and maybe it's even less than 13. Bottom line is you can't learn anything from pasei biros, from these L-shaped things around a well. And we don't know what Rabbi Yehuda's view would be. Okay, Tani Levi, we now taught in the Brisa from Levi. Mavishu rachav esrim amos. You have a mavi which entrance is 20 amos, right? It has to be no longer than 10 amos. So what do you do over here? No, it's kana be'emtziyiso v'dayo. You put a pole in the middle, one thin pole, and now the pole gets in the way of the 20 amos. So now it's 9.5 amos on one side, 9.5 amos on the other side. Boom, you got 2 doors. Okay, Hutani la, he taught it. Hu amar la de enalach gosemish. And then he said, you know what? Halach is not like it. Yes, there is an opinion like this, but the halach is not like it. Why not? Because we'll see later, but there's too much open and kind of like almost like consumes that one place. In other words, that one thing is going to be insignificant, and we're not going to. It'll be like swept up, and therefore we would ignore it. Ikad Amri. Okay, those have a slightly different version of this discussion. Amar Shmuel Mishmei to Levi in Halach goes to Mishnah that Shmuel says the name of Levi. That's not Levi said it, but rather Shmuel said the name of his teacher. Bottom line is we don't paskin like that brisa. Okay, Elahechiav. It's what do you do? Amar Shmuel Mishmei to Levi. Shmuel says the name of Levi. Ose paskavoa asar b'meshech arba amos. What you do? Make something 10 high and 10 fachim high and 4 amos long. And you place it going this way, right? So in other words, it's tall, it's 10 tachim high, it's 4 amos wide, and you place it this way. Now, granted, it's very thin, but really it's 4 tefachim wide, and therefore it's not able to be batel. You place that in the middle, and that's already going to be something which will not be batel. It will not be nullified by the 20 amos, and it's going to be totally kosher. Okay, Inami Rabbi Yehuda. Another alternatively can be corrected. In the following case, let's say you have a mavi which is 15 amos wide, okay, and you want it closed off, so you can make a 10 amma doorway. Marchik shtei amos v'osapas shalosh amos. What you could do is you could take a board which is 3 amos wide, and you could put it within 2 amos or 2 amos past the wall. In other words, you have a wall over here, wall over here. It's 15 amos. Okay, you got to get rid of 5 amos. So we only have a board of 3 amos. No problem. You take the board of 3 amos, you put it over here, 2 amos away from this. So it's a 2 amma gap, 3 amma board. That since it's close enough to the wall, we have a principle called lavud. Okay, called lavud. Lavud says within 3 tzvachim we treat it as connected to the wall, and therefore. Sorry. Over here we have it. It's a space of 2 amos near the wall. So lavud is going to work over here as well, and within two amos, and therefore a person is going to once it's not larger than 3 amos space, it's going to be considered all closed off as 5. 5 closed off. Then you have the 10 amma doorway, and that's another way of closing it off. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful week. All the best.